Behind me here I have these little cubbies that I had built into my potting bench, and it looks like the birds have been coming in here and trying to build their nests in there. Hello. This morning I am planting beans, but before I get into that, I just want to complain about the weather here in Portland, Oregon. I guess it's not unexpected for spring, but it has turned cold and rainy this last week. We're hoping as we round out May that it is going to warm up again. And yeah, I've got tomato plants and peppers in the greenhouse. Maybe I'll tell you about that later. So yeah, it's good, good kale weather. So anyway, back over here, I am planting beans this morning. And so what I'm doing here is I've got a bunch of pots here, and I'm going to put 4 holes in each, and then I'm going to drop my beans in there. I've gone back and forth. I've actually planted beans in the little cell trays like this before, and it's worked out okay. Last year I planted beans just directly in the ground, and it was okay. What I don't like about that is that anything I plant directly in the ground, you know, as a start like that, or as a seed to germinate like that, it's very hit and miss, because the critters that are out here, they get into it. So birds and squirrels and whatever, they just seem to dig up anything that is kind of a seed or a small item being germinated. I've also got the rabbit again chewing on everything, but I don't know if a rabbit would chew on little bean seedlings or not. But in any case, I figure it's safer just to germinate them. I'll germinate them in the basement nursery, and then pot them out. And my plan is that I'll take kind of 4 that are in a pot like this and just plop them underneath the trellis once that's ready. So, and beans germinate pretty quickly, usually, is my experience. So I think I could be plotting them in the ground in the next 3 weeks easily. Okay, so that's what I'm doing here, and got my handy little poker, just going along here and poking 4 holes. I'm poking 4 holes in each of these pots. Don't worry, I did this with another tray yesterday, so I kind of know what I'm doing now. Let's see here. All right, and then I am planting purple beans. That probably shows up backwards for you all, but I like the purple potted beans. These, to me, they taste just like green stream beans, but it's fun. They're easier to spot. They're for harvest. They're easier to find them. And then, yeah, it's just kind of fun. It's a little bit of a, for some people, when you serve them, it's a little bit of a novelty of, oh, what are these? Purple beans, purple green beans. And then for the kids, when you typically with purple potted beans, there's multiple varieties out there these days, but I think they are all similar in that when you boil or heat up the purple, I think it, well, specifically when you boil, I guess I don't know if it's true with all heating processes, but when you boil up purple beans, they turn green. So for the kids, you got some magic beans. And I actually don't have, that covers it. So I've got 2 more pots here. I'm gonna throw in, I had some leftovers. This is what I planted yesterday, which is another purple pole bean, a different variety that the one that you just saw me, this one, I've grown this before reliably, so I know exactly how it works. This one I haven't grown before, but it comes from Territorial Seed. I highly trust them. I think it is likely to be very reliable. Beans in general are. It says it's a French fillet style bean, so we'll see. Got the 2 different kinds. We'll see if this one's more fancy than the other. All right. I planted a whole tray of these French ones yesterday, but I have some extra room here, so I'll plant another pot of those. I think I might leave I don't have that many of those. Yeah, I think what I'm gonna do, it's hard for me to not just plant everything, but I think I'm gonna leave what's remainder here to direct seed in the ground just as backup. So when I actually go and put these out, I'll put these directly in the ground at the same time, and that way, if this process for some reason backfires on me, I'll maybe still get some other beans. I do have some bush beans as well, which is unusual. I don't usually grow bush beans, so I've got to decide where I want to grow those this year. And those were some leftover seeds from my father. Okay. Next step, use my little dibbler here to just poke them down in just a little bit. I don't want them to go too far. They don't need to be super deep. But want to make sure that my aim is good and I got them in where they go in here. Okay, and then I'm just gonna take some of my potting compost here, potting soil. I watch too many UK gardening shows. We call it potting soil here in the US. They always call it potting compost. I'm putting compost in my pots, and you know, it threw me for a while because I'm like, really? You're putting compost in your pots to start seeds? And then realize that in their vernacular and in their world, the stuff, you know, if they go and buy potting soil in bags, which I don't do here. This is just a mix of things that I have, but when they do that, they call it potting compost, or they'll just call it compost for short. And sure enough, some of them are in fact using compost they made themselves too, but I'm not brave enough to do that, generally speaking, with my germination trays. My compost that I put out in my beds, when I put them out in my beds invariably have a boatload of weeds after I put it out. So I am not at the composting level to be using my compost for seed germination, that's for sure. All right, well, that's this task. On to the next. Hello. I wanted to share with you what's going on with my tomatoes. So this tomato is a cherry tomato, and it's already kind of putting on a tomato there, which I don't really like to see happening while it's still in a pot in the greenhouse. This is a sauce tomato. So you can see that the tomato it's purplish. It doesn't have a very thick stem, and that's probably nutrition oriented, that I haven't fed it properly. This, in my experience, will go away. It'll become green and look the way it should look and thicken up pretty quickly after it goes out into the field. But what I wanted to talk about was kind of my choice right now to keep these in these cups for another week, because it is the end of May, and a week from now it'll be the beginning of June. And looking at the weather report, it looks like we'll start getting consistently 50-degree nights here in the Portland, Oregon area in the next week or so. Fingers crossed, right? It's been very cool this last week. And it's kind of a game time decision, because when you look at it, if I pull this thing out of the cup here, you can see the root on the bottom. Now, I've had worse. I've had kind of the whole thing just caked in roots all the way around before I planted. So I think this is fine in the sense that it can survive another week. It'll be okay for one more week, and then it'll go in the ground next weekend. But my choice, the alternative, what I was thinking about doing, was coming along with all these tomatoes, because they're all kind of in this zone. Some have more root development than others, but they're all kind of in this zone. So my other thought was I was going to pot these up from the red cups into 1-gallon containers, but I don't want to do that for just a week. So what I'm looking at right now is, if I had done this 2 weekends ago, if I had gotten to this 2 weekends ago, I could have potted it up into 1-gallon containers and then maybe had bigger plants a week from now when they go out. The other thing I was thinking about on this point is I planted my tomatoes to get them to this stage. I planted my tomatoes kind of mid to late February. So while it sounds really early, I'm thinking about next year maybe, because I plant them under lights to begin with in the basement where it's warm. So I'm thinking about maybe next year planting them in mid to late January instead of mid to late February, like a month earlier, with the intent that I would pot these up to 1-gallon pots before they go out into the field, so that maybe by beginning of May they go into 1-gallon pots, and then by beginning of June is when they go out into the field. So I'm starting with a bigger plant. I've never really done that way before, so I'm kind of curious and interested if how that might work. Let me show you one other that has a thicker stem, just so you can see that it's a little bit different by variety. That particular saucing tomato, here's a San Marzano, and you can see it still has the purplish hue. Same issue with the nutrition that I expect will get better once it goes out into the field, but it does have a thicker stem. So, and if I undo it here, we'll see, again, similar root development, but it's not so bad that it can't wait another few days, another week, and then I can go ahead and just put them out in the field. I mean, the advantage there of putting them out in the field rather than potting it up, of course, is that it's less work, right? Because if I pot them up first, then that's more work to pot them up before it goes out into the field. And then it's also space, right? I put them in pots, and then I got to have a place for all those pots. And, you know, I've got probably 50 tomato plants in here. So that would be a lot of 1-gallon pots taking up space in the greenhouse. All right, well, that's my tomato journey so far this year.